Hello. When I was asked to speak for today's presentation, I thought, what the hell does a bunch of satellite experts want to know about fixed broadband? And I was a little bit worried about how to set the scene and where we want to go and what we want to talk about. But then sitting through the sessions today, and a lot of conversation just made me nod and thought, well, hold on, there's a lot of things here that are relevant to broadband, to 5G, and to satellite. We talked about convergence, hybrid markets, hybrid access, SDN, cups, things like this. It's like, well, hold on, there's so many synergies here that I'm glad I am speaking. So excuse me, because my presentation is going to go from all the way up there down to a little bit down below your ankles in detail. But hopefully it's relevant, and there's interest there between a satellite and a broadband, fixed broadband environment as well. If anyone other than Proactive PR have heard of the Broadband Forum, thank you very much. I appreciate that greatly. We are a standards body focusing on traditionally fixed broadband and connectivity, but that is evolving. And our focus really, when you look at it now, at a very high level, is we build the standards, the interoperability, the architectures, the data models for service providers in three key areas. They've given me a video screen over there. What they didn't know is I'm blind, so I am going to be looking over here a little bit as well. But the three key areas that we focus standards on is the connected user, everything that's inside the home, to everything that is in the service and the service orchestration in the cloud, the managed home, the services on top of that, etc., etc. The broadband network architectures, so everything from the access network into the core environment. So whether that was traditionally, goodness me, ATM, MPLS, then DSL, now fiber, and now convergence as well. And then finally, we have a lot of investment and time in cloud networking. We touched on one of the previous roundtables on SDN and NFV environments and machine learning and AI. We have standards work that builds that. We are contribution driven. Our members contribute to all the work that we start and we publish as TRs and standards. And they are traditionally service provider operators, the vendor community, and increasingly application providers as well. That's the Broadband Forum. And if you could start the clock, that would be great, because if not, I'm going to talk for years, honestly. So broadband market outlook. Gladstone had it right. There's lies, damn lies, and statistics. And if you believe this figure from Point Topic, it would suggest that fiber's the way to go and everyone's driving fiber. And other markets are decreasing annually, and some are stagnating. The only other one is wireless and fixed wireless access. What this data point here in the graph doesn't show is the impact of LEO and satellites and how that is going to be growing. And when you look at other market and other analysts, you're looking at annual growth rates of between 13 and 33% for satellite broadband. So it is significant. But fiber, and it is slightly skewed by China, that fiber broadband will be approximately 66% of all broadband connections. It is already today, and it's likely to continue to do that. So when you're talking about convergence of 5G and satellite, don't forget fixed. It's going to be the majority of broadband connections, and it will also be a role model for many as well. However, there's good news. When you look at things like the US, and I'm using the North American market because the European market is very different on a statistics basis. But generally speaking, there's price competition. Cable had it all their way, fiber are coming now, and the pricing is coming down. And the model that fixed has driven is a very, very utilitarian utility model where buy speed, buy speed, buy speed. Oh, you want a gigabit, here's your price. How much are you willing to pay extra for a multiple gigabit? You're not willing to pay? And this is what we're seeing in North America and Europe at the moment. We've been so successful at selling speed, we've become a utility marketplace. It's hard to differentiate other than speed and price. And you read the user forums, and they say, hey, I've got a 500 megabit service, should I buy a gigabit? Or I've got a gigabit, should I buy a multi-gigabit? And the user forums are coming back and saying, what's the point? You don't need all that speed yet. It's like, build it and it will come. Well, guess what? The application providers haven't built it yet to need more than a multi-gigabit environment. But there's this move to fiber, and it will be a benchmark for what broadband services look like and feel like. And that fiber network is not going to decrease. At the moment, we're seeing a lot of the telco operators deploying something called XGS-PON, which is a 10 gigabit PON across a shared environment. There's already plans for commercially available 25 gig, now just coming out 50 gig PON, and in the not so distant future, working with the ITU and other bodies, there's 100 gig PON. Now, interestingly, I sit on an executive advisory board for telcos, and interestingly, when I ask the question to these execs of, the large telcos, well, what's the use case? What's your business driver to go past 10 gig? And it's now the argument of, I need to build a broadband network that's multi-service. It's not just residential. I'm building broadband networks for business, for industrial IoT, for smart cities. That's my use case to move past 10 gigabit. Price pressures. If you look at North America, which has been enviable to most other markets where they were charging $100 for a broadband connection because of a lack of competition. That competition is now coming about, and you are seeing not just these figures in real terms of how much the price pressure is coming down, but if you take inflation as well, the figure's even worse. There's symmetry between 4G and 5G and FTTH 100 megabit and gigabit services, where they're selling pretty much the same service for more speed. And when do they start making money? And that's the quandary when I talk to telcos today, is when do they start making money? You're seeing a lot of operators, new competitive operators come into the marketplace using government schemes, government funding, etc. But the question mark still remains the same, and there will be consolidation in the marketplace because it cannot survive selling purely on speed alone. And that's the conversations that we in the Broadband Forum are doing, are moving standards away from just the connectivity to monetizing the investment and looking at what's next. Question: what's the user experience that's different between somebody with a gigabit service with poor latency and a 50 meg service with poor latency, the same poor latency? The user experience is identical. Doesn't matter if you've got a gigabit. If you're running at 60, 70, 80 milliseconds delay, that user experience is exactly the same, irrespective of speed. So when you look at LEOs now and the opportunity to offer 200, 300 megabit services with really good latency of sub 20 milliseconds, well, that experience is pretty much the same as a gigabit with the same latency. Who needs a gig? Anyone at home today need a gigabit? And sorry, I shouldn't be saying this because I'm fixed broadband and we can offer multi-gigabit, but a gigabit means what? 44K concurrent streaming live video services? 40. 4K videos. Even if you move to 8K video, it's still at least 10 to 20 live streams at the same time. We're building networks and pricing networks in fixed broadband that the consumer isn't ready for. What he is needing now is a user experience that's relevant to the applications that he's doing. And that moves us to, from a standards point of view, we're solving the connectivity problem, but we're not solving the user experience problem. The easiest people to sell is the younger generation. If I talk to a gamer, he knows all about latency. 20% of homes are gamers, by the way, in Europe. And when he hits his fire button, I'm not one of that 20%, and you'll tell very shortly. But when he hits that fire button, he wants to make sure that he fires quicker than the guy on the opposite side of the cloud on the hosted gaming service. When you're talking about to a teleworker, he needs to make sure his video conferencing has no delays, but he needs to make sure it's absolutely secure so that his transport into the corporate WAN or cloud or hosted service is secure. And he does not want to be competing for Wi-Fi bandwidth with his son gaming and whoever else is playing in the home. He needs to have guaranteed quality of service inside the home, not just in the network. These are the environments, and there's many, many others. And what you're seeing now is the service providers recognizing that the bill payer is not the user. There's multiple users behind that. The teleworker, the gamer, the video streamer, the high bandwidth graphics editor, whatever it may be. And we're now building broadband services that recognize the applications and the users, not just the connection itself. So what does services-led broadband mean from our side? And I don't care. I mean, that's our own term. It could be intelligent broadband. It could be application-aware broadband, whatever. But from a telco point of view, and these are the execs from the likes of the largest operators in North America, Europe, and Asia telling us this, that there's 5 key challenges that they're seeing moving away from the traditional utility dumb pipe broadband. Monetizing of new services. At the moment, they're a dumb pipe. Everyone's running across that network free of charge. Whether you're Netflix, whether you're Amazon, whether you're Sony, it's all running across that. And they need to understand how they're going to monetize that network itself. Service differentiation. Especially in a wholesale market, there's very little differentiating one operator to the next. If you're buying from, in the UK, TalkTalk, or from PlusNet, or from Sky, you're likely buying a wholesale BT service. And there is next to no difference. Sorry if I'm insulting one of those 3 in the room, but there's very little difference between their products. So once again, it comes down to price. It's an interesting quandary. The future of fiber broadband will be moving to multi-service. So that when I move to 50 gig and 100 gig type services, I am going to want to offer MPLS-like services to businesses across that network. Now that brings technical challenges because PONs traditionally were VLANs. That was it, layer 2 Ethernet VLAN. We're now going to bring in some kind of slicing and intelligence so that we not just guarantee a quality of service, but we're guaranteeing separation of traffic and security of traffic as well. So so that multi-service broadband also brings in convergence, because whoever you are, you don't cover 100% of the country you're operating in. And then converging, we started work already on standards of converging the 5G mobile network with the fixed, and why not look at converging with satellite as well. And then there's agile network. We've talked about AI and ML. We've talked about SDN and NFV. There's another phrase that is big and very, very popular now at the bleeding edge for service providers, which is autonomous networking. So utilizing AI and ML and recognizing where the pain points in the network is. How do I autonomously set up a new service, a new connection on the application level? Or how do I session steer to the most underutilized part of the network for specific applications, etc.? So this autonomous networking is used in both fixed, mobile, and has implications for satellite as well. So I can recognize in a hybrid environment that my best path might be via a satellite link, not via the fixed network where there's congestion at this time. Or I recognize that this is a corporate network that needs to have guaranteed IoT-like services that's better served via the satellite than across a shared PON network. There's all that intelligence that they're building in. Yes, SDN NFE is part of that, virtualization, separation of the control plane and the user plane, disaggregation of network elements. But the autonomous is where AI comes into that, and now it becomes not just self-healing, but self-serving networks as well. Am I preaching? If I am, I do apologize. But I just wanted to give you an update of some of the key things that's happened from the fixed point of view. When it looks at services-led broadband, there's this lovely little infographic. I'm only going to focus on your right-hand side, the connectivity, the user experience, and the service agility. I'm not going to go into heavy details of what's happening inside the home, but from a standards point of view, we do that. But when you're looking at connectivity and broadband now evolving from just a dumb pipe to service-aware across residential, business, IoT, smart cities, whatever it may be, it has to be 100% coverage. Whether that's converging both the fixed with the mobile, with copper, with cable, or with satellite. That services-led broadband environment needs to be a true converged network. So that me as a telco, if I'm going to offer a business service, I'm not going to say I only serve 90% of your workers. I need to serve 100% or I'm not going to get the contract. And those type of discussions. We've talked a lot about user experience already. I want to add security to QoE. Network security as well as user security. Unfortunately, we are in a time where on a weekly basis, all of the large telcos have a cyber threat to their network. And the ability to build in network security all the way down the stack from a physical layer to a software layer, to a management layer, an OSS, BSS level, or an orchestration level is key. So building that security into the network and having AI monitor that at some time is a challenge that we've only started to answer. And there's a lot of standards work that needs to be happening across the board. I mentioned service agility already. That has to be a service agility from provisioning, from service orchestration and network orchestration, but also from a perspective of the user visibility as well. If I'm paying a premium for my service, I want to have visibility of that service and how it's performing. I talk to regulators, whoever they may be, RSET, Ofcom, FCC, etc. And they come to us and say, well, we need to start looking at measuring QoE as a broadband measurable if they're using government money. And traditionally what we've done is, we do measurements for QoE. It's called a ping test. And you probably do a ping test once in a blue moon when you switch your router on or whatever, just to see that it's working and it doesn't have much round-trip delay, jitter, or latency. Well, moving into that, the user needs to see his QoE. If he's paying extra for a particular service, we need to be measuring not just the speed, but the QoE and the user experience, and that'll happen. So what's key in the telco environment when we look at this new level of broadband itself? I've already talked about autonomous provisioning, irrespective of the technology. If it's a true converged network, I can provision a service irrespective of what access technology it is. But I want a converged edge and I want a converged core into the cloud and the servers. Whether that cloud is in a data center in the middle of nowhere, or whether it is a metro edge compute cloud that's closer to the customer. I need to be doing that. Service management, talked about that already, but it's going to be common across all the platforms. It has to be defined, common services across the hybrid network and control and user plane separation. When you talk SDN and NFV and separating the user plane and the control plane, it also brings in lots of opportunities to say, well, hold on, I don't need one control plane, I can have multiple. One from a satellite perspective, one from a 5G perspective, one from the fixed network perspective. But my user plane, my service management can be the same across those three control planes. And that's one of the glories of SD and NFV. It's not just a CapEx saving, it could be a massive OpEx saving too. Reliable. I've been the biggest hypocrite ever, by the way. I've been in fixed broadband for over 30 years, and it's just the last year that I've had a fiber connection. And fiber is great, it's reliable, it's much better than copper and ADSL or VDSL, but it still goes wrong. And I guarantee just last week, it went down when I was having my most important call of the week. I live rural. My mobile phone connection is, I'm lucky to get 1 bar. I do broadband, Wi-Fi calling over broadband. Now as a teleworker, remote worker, I needed a solution. And if I had satellite, that would be the solution. Actually, my solution was to jump in a car and go to a managed office and book it for an hour so I could make that call. It doesn't look very good and it made me frustrated. But that hybrid backup reliability is absolutely key. QoE is going to become more and more important in the broadband experience. The good news is LEO or LEO, or is it LEO or LEO? Well, what's the abbreviation I should be using here? I don't know. LEO. Thank you. LEO. Theoretically has 20 milliseconds latency. Not theoretically, it's been proven. Sorry, it's been proven. And that's pretty much as good as anywhere at this present second. The future, if you look at a gaming environment, a VR and AR environment, 20 milliseconds is absolutely fine. There's this thing called cyber dizziness. Have you heard of this? And that this is the brain seeing what's happening on the screen and making sure that it's happening in time that his brain accepts and his eyes accept, etc. That is around 25 milliseconds. So that when I've got a VR, AR goggles, I told you I'm not a gamer, VR, AR goggles, I need, when I'm moving and things like that, I have 25 milliseconds before my brain says, I don't like this. I'm going to make you dizzy. You're going to be sick. You're going to fall over. And if you fall over and bump your head, who are you suing? We're not in America, but you'll probably sue somebody anyway. And that's a key element. Yes, Meta and the metaverse are saying sub 10 milliseconds, but the Meta business case hasn't been proven yet. Today, 25 milliseconds, so LEO is absolutely fine. And then you have wholesale. And wholesale is really interesting because unless you're the incumbent or the fiber network owner, you're wholesaling the service from somewhere and you need to differentiate that. But your traffic has to be separated. And why can it be autonomous that it can be separated at the satellite level, the 5G fixed wireless access level, as well as the fiber broadband or the copper broadband level? So we're doing standards work that is around basic network slicing today, at like layer 2 network slicing. So I can slice a part of my network for a corporate customer, an IoT provider, as well as wholesale providers. We're miles away from slicing at the application level. We really need AI, ML, and super compute power if we're going to slice all the way down to the application layer. But we can do that today. Converged networks. We started this already, but we started it with 5G. So the Broadband Forum is in partnership with 3GPP, where we're looking at how does the fixed mobile converged network, or what we call wireless wireline converged network, looks like today. Because they've been separated. And we all talk about convergence. Where is convergence starting? Is it in the core? Is it at the edge of the network? Or is it in the home? Well, the answer is pretty much everywhere. If you're building one core transport, Whether you're a 5G operator, satellite operator, or a fixed network operator, you want to build it once. You don't want to build 3 core networks. We have done. The legacy network historically is there's a 5G core, the fixed core, and then there's a satellite distribution network as well. So we're building a network, and we've introduced something, and sorry, the pointer doesn't work on the screen. It's such a clever screen that it doesn't recognize the pointer. But right in the middle of that, you'll see something called an AGF, an access gateway function. Now, in fixed networks, we call that a BNG or a BRAS. It's the service management platform. It does all the authentication. It tells you what services this person subscribed to. It does all of the authorization, AAA services. Now, we've built it in such a way that we can migrate from the fixed network BNG to this AGF, which talks directly to the mobile 5G core. And if it's talking directly to the 5G mobile core, why do you want to keep investing in a fixed core? The mobile core's bigger, newer, and has some significant benefits, which I'll talk about. Now, that AGF can equally be a service management platform for satellite as well. Subscribers, broadband subscribers. So I'm just introducing that. Now, the other side of it is we are building the model for hybrid as well as fixed wireless access and wireline routers. And this is an open source model that anyone can sign in and look at and understand that. So what does the data model look like? What does the service architecture and the CPE architecture look like when we look at a hybrid home gateway, irrespective of the access technology? Now, that's where we're at today. So working with 3GPP, we started at release 16 of 3GPP, now 17 and now 18, and introducing that work with wireline wireless convergence. So it doesn't take a genius to understand the opportunity that this could also represent from a satellite environment. Whether the satellite is conversion to the mobile and then the access, or sits alone as a converged satellite service with the fixed. So that convergence work hasn't started. We're contribution driven. It needs our members, whether you're a service provider or vendor, to start that work. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist, and it doesn't need a lot of additional work to make it a satellite as well as 3G, 4G, 5G converged fixed network. There we are, 5 minutes left. So from a fixed point of view, there's some significant benefits that I think would represent benefits to satellite, especially LEO satellite as well, that the mobile network can bring. Yes, there's a reduced CapEx and OpEx, of course there is. That common transport, a common service management level with that AGF environment, and a common services and services architecture that sits on a hybrid gateway. But it also brings some of the benefits of 5G, 6G edge core, such as slicing. I mean, mobile networks with MVNOs have been doing that for the last 5, 6, 7 years, and we can utilize that slicing not just in the fixed, but across a satellite connection as well. Single QoE approach. There's 2 key drivers that we can take from 5G and build that QoE model. There's something called 5QI, which is inherent to 5G networks itself, which is kind of the next level up from class of service and prioritization of services, that it recognizes 5QoI dynamically and will put it into the regular stream. And then something else that's coming, which is really, really interesting across the mobile, but across all networks, is something called L4S. The great thing about L4S is that it can be applied to any part of the network, whether it's the Wi-Fi connection in the home, the access network to a CPE, the edge distribution network and middle mile network, as well as the core. And it can be independent. So L4S and L4S routing is really, really interesting, that we can start looking at, well, if I've got a satellite connection, how do I guarantee a better QoS for IoT than internet access traffic? Or for a gaming session versus a video streaming or whatever. L4S can dynamically do that. So that's really interesting. Moving forward, satellite and fixed wireless access are often seen as the solution for rural issues of broadband? Well, talking in all over the world, the digital divide is not just rural. There's parts of inner cities, especially large MDUs or apartment blocks, that are also suffering from the digital divide. So we need to build the solutions, and satellite is ideally situated for this, as well as fixed wireless access, for the rural, but also that big MDU problem. So I can do a satellite connection with a dish to the big apartment block tower, and I can distribute that traffic, whether it's an individual satellites or using the existing copper wiring, that I can distribute that satellite there. And that's important because there's a big problem with fixed broadband. Landlords don't want you going in there and rewiring their buildings unless you're going to pay them. It's true. When you talk to a telco and you talk to their marketing and their CTO office and everything like that, one thing they don't want, especially the largest telcos, is to have 20 different service packages or 30. I don't want to have, here's your package if you're a satellite provider and there's 5 or 6 different flavors. Here's your package if you're a 5G customer and there's 6 or 7 options. Here's your fixed network and there's 7 or 8 options. They cannot monetize those services and they cannot run with 20 or 30 different packages. They want to streamline that. Their worst case scenario is a customer says, I see you're advertising this gigabit broadband service, can I have it? No, you can, but you can have this satellite product at this price. Well, I want to have the same product as everyone else if you're marketing it. So they want to streamline services, which means a common service management and common application level as well. But as I said, LEO, forget speed. If you're serving 300 megabits, that serves the vast majority of consumer requirements. If you can offer a QoE and a latency that meets their applications, then you are great competition to a fixed network. So wrapping it up, hybrid interoperability. We will continue to build that converged network from a 5G and a fixed perspective. But why not for a satellite environment? All it needs is our members to start saying, hey, we want this for satellite as well. From a broadband forum point of view, it's our members just contribute, and if there's 2 or 3 members who say, I want it, we'll start the standards work. And that's how we work. Telco and satellite wholesale is definitely aligned. Yes, I'm biased because they pay my weges. But if you want a true 100% coverage, you have to include satellite and 5G in your service levels. And we're driving a common converged access network, as I mentioned. So that's it. Thank you very much. If you're interested in the BBF or standards work, let us know. Thank you.